Welcome to Eminence Legacy, the podcast where pain becomes purpose and brokenness becomes the birthplace of brilliance. This episode, it's more than a conversation, it's a wake-up call. We're diving deep into the invisible wounds too many carry in silence, and, more importantly, how we show up for each other in a world that desperately needs healing, not more hurt. Host Jose Luis Cadena Jr. breaks it down, the scars we can't see, the stories behind the silence, and why empathy isn't just nice, it's necessary. From defining trauma to building trauma-informed spaces that actually help, we're laying the groundwork for transformation. So if you're ready to stop judging, start listening, and learn how even small actions can start a revolution of healing, stay tuned. The impact of trauma, understanding, and healing begins now, because together we rise to our eminence.
Welcome to another episode of the Eminence Legacy podcast, where we talk about creating lasting impact and meaningful change. I'm your host, Jose Luis Cadena, and today we're diving into the powerful topic about trauma-informed practices. This episode will help us understand trauma and how it affects people and how we can support them with empathy, care, and understanding. Trauma. What is trauma? A lot of times we all think about trauma and we think about ourselves, maybe something we've gone through and in the past that has affected us, impacted us, maybe in a negative way. But trauma can be defined as a response to a deeply disturbing or distressing event or a series of events. It's not just about physical harm, but also emotional and psychological pain that can linger longer than and after that the event already happened. A lot of times these traumas happen during your early childhood years. You might remember things that happened from your since you can remember to the age of 7 or 8 years old. And life throws us things at you that sometimes has this traumatic effect in our lives, and for some reason it lingers in our lives, and it's hard to combat it. So this is why trauma happens. External factors often have a lot to do with it: abuse, loss, violence, neglect, and natural disasters. Anything that could basically affect you emotionally or mentally, it's an external factor. Internal factors a lot of times are genetic predisposition, childhood experiences, mental health struggles. There's a lot of stressors in life. Overwhelming ongoing stress can contribute to the trauma. We don't live in an easy world where we could just navigate without facing issues. So understanding the roots of trauma helps us avoid judgment, and instead it opens the door for healing and empathy. The understanding of this topic allows us to connect with people that are going through this or might have gone through this or are struggling with this. So the impact of trauma sometimes affects us even physically. The stress responses with chronic health issues. Emotionally, we get fear, anxiety, depression, lack of trust, and a world of emotions that are just mixing us. But they could also create behavioral self-destructive habits, anger issues, isolation. Maybe you hate the world, There's a lot of things that happen behaviorally. Mentally, the way trauma affects us is difficult to focus sometimes. Trauma induces sometimes memory loss and confusion. A lot of times when people go through trauma, they even kind of hide away what actually happened and kind of keep it stored somewhere in their mind where they can't access it to try to continue living. But eventually those traumas come out eventually with time, and no matter how much you try to pack them in there and try to forget them, they tend to resurface. This makes it harder for someone to interact with their world in healthy ways, especially in environments like school, workplaces, and even at home or when going out and being around people. It just affects you. So I'm going to explain to you what is a trauma-informed approach. Trauma-informed care or practices are strategies that take into account the person's past traumatic experiences when working with them. It's about creating an environment that is safe, supportive, and empowering instead of one that further isolates them or harms them. Now, a lot of time you're not going to know that the person might be traumatized or that they're going through traumas and that they have something inside. But a lot of times they display some sort of behavior that could tell you that something's wrong with them. And a lot of times we tend to see this, we tend to notice this, and we tend to to comment on it. Hey, did you notice so and so was acting kind of weird, this and this and that. So a lot of times they're going through issues, but they're not speaking. So we need to learn to identify them, those signs as well. But one of the things that we need to practice is ensure that the physical and emotional safety is always a priority to us. We need to make sure that the people that we love, we care about, or we're with, that their safety comes first, emotionally, physically, that make sure that they're safe and actively involve people in their healing process. How can we do this? Well, we can do this through collaboration and trust. Let's work together as partners to build trust in a relationship. Let's try to interact with them a little bit more, include them to be able to try to dissect or understand what they're going through. Giving individuals options and the ability to make their own decisions about their care or how you're going to help them. Allow them to tell you, hey, this is the way I need help, or I think I can handle this on my own. If they're giving you those type of answers, you need to give them their own space. They'll come around when they're ready. But respecting the diverse backgrounds and recognize how trauma impacts people differently depending on their culture, their identity, where they're from. It has a lot to do with the person. Just because I go through one thing and you go through the same thing, let's say we go through the same bad experience, we're not going to deal with it the same. A lot of times what's going to happen is that one person is going to overcome it with a breeze. They're not even going to sweat about it. They're going to just come through that traumatic moment with no issues. But other people don't have the same capacity. And it has nothing to do with their abilities or their mental state. It has to do just with the way we're built. Everybody is built differently. Everybody thinks differently. So we need to recognize that trauma affects not just the person, but the way they interact with others, the way they learn, and the way they function in their environment. It affects their whole world. A teacher who understands trauma might avoid harsh punishment and instead provide support when a student acts out, recognizing that the behavior could stem from past trauma, or they might identify that there's an issue with a child, right? And they find ways to work around it. In the workplace, a lot of times managers and HR teams can integrate trauma-informed practices by encouraging open door policies, open communication, providing mental health resources, and being empathetic to employees. Where I work, we actually have chaplains that come in and they talk to our workers, and they help with the personal struggles, or they pray for you, or they're able to talk to you. So there's a lot of jobs that provide this type of care for their team members. When we're talking about healthcare, there's doctors and therapists that might use trauma sensitive communication, and they avoid trigger languages or behavior that could re-traumatize the patient. When you go to some of these doctors or therapists, they know how to handle the situations. And many times, a lot of times, these people, what they need is just a person that they could rely on. See, for instance, I once worked with a young man who had experienced significant abuse in his life. He had trouble trusting people, authority, and oftentimes he would lash out. When we shifted our approach and focused on creating an environment that respected his experiences and gave him choices, we saw a significant shift in his behavior and engagement, and his trust levels actually went a little bit above than what he had them. Sure, maybe he didn't trust me 100%, but he shared a little bit more with me, and I was able to guide him and give him a little bit more better advice to what he was struggling with. The key takeaway here is that the trauma-informed practices work. They require patience and understanding, but they help break the cycle of re-traumatization, open doors to healing and growth, and to better their situation, to be able for them to have a better life. It's very important for us to integrate trauma-informed practices and some strategies. And with those strategies, we need to think of self-awareness, because even though a lot of times we think that we're self-aware about ourselves, but to begin applying any type of trauma-informed practices, we need to start with self-awareness. Because a lot of times we don't understand that we're biased. We need to understand your biases, your triggers, and how they might affect your interactions. We all have our own beliefs, our own set of thoughts, our own opinions, and a lot of times they interfere with our interactions or the way we connect with people, because sometimes we're just so stuck in our ways. Listening and validation is important. Listening without judgment and validating people's feelings is powerful. Sometimes the best thing you can do is just listen. And one of the things that we need to do, and I need to practice more myself, is creating a clear and healthy boundaries. That is essential for both yourself and others. This helps maintain a safe environment and helps you also protect your time, and also helps you with navigating through the different challenges you have during your days. Whether you're a teacher or a manager or a friend, learning more about these about trauma and how it affects people is vital. Why? Because a lot of times you're the person that they're going to come to and ask questions. You're the person that they're going to come ask for help. Training and training can empower you to make a difference in the people's lives. If you implement some changes in your life, it might allow you to come alongside somebody that is dealing with some issue, and you'll be able to make a difference in their life. Support others in their journey by offering resources, encouragement, and freedom, and give them the time to heal at their own pace, because a lot of times we want to rush this. We want them to get better. We want this to just go back to normal, but a lot of times this type of traumas take time. You cannot fix something overnight. It takes time. Trauma-informed practices are not just about providing care. They're about changing the way we think, about the way we respond to people who have experienced trauma. It's about being more empathetic, more understanding, and more supportive. Let's just break the cycle of harm and replace it with compassion. I really hope that today's episode helps you understand trauma-informed practices better, and that you're inspired to apply these strategies in your own personal and professional life. Remember that small changes, how we engage with other people, can have a monumental impact and effect in their lives. And really what we're supposed to do, we need to be impactful for those around us. We need to be a little bit more mindful and be able to come alongside of people and help them. If you found this episode helpful, I encourage you to share with your friends, family, and loved ones, your colleagues, or a loved one who might benefit from it. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode of the Eminence Legacy podcast. Together, let's rise to our eminence. And until next time, keep embracing empathy and making a difference. Take care, and we see you soon.